Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do is mark off where some of these shadow shapes are, which will help reinforce the drawing and kind of check the proportions that I have, as well as finish the ear. I don't know why. I just always forget about the ear. It's always the last thing I paint. It's the last thing I draw. I just don't care about ears. So I'm gonna, though I do need to draw this in to make sure that it looks competent before I start painting, just to get that information in. So, making sure I'm in the same position. That's about where this big hole in my ear should start. That's about how far it should go up. There is always a lot of fun drawing in ears. I don't really know why I forget about them so much. There's always some nice color going on in them too. Like this color over here, we have this really rich pinks and reds in there, some super nice color. There's some nice cold grays and violets that are inside there, and there's really a lot going on. It's just I don't find the ears to be a particularly emotive part of the head. So maybe that's where my general disinterest comes from in ears. I don't find that they typically have a whole lot of personality outside of, you know, people who have done wrestling or boxing or something like that, where their ears have really been transformed. I'm too much of a wuss to do wrestling or boxing, so my ear is just an ear. Okay, sweet. All right, I'm gonna keep moving. Let's move on to the shadows. Make sure I'm in the right position. All right. See that it comes down just a little bit past the edge of the mouth. Comes to here. This is big shape, which when you're just looking, and to an untrained eye, you see a lot more variation in that shape, and that does exist. But when you squint and look at that value shape, you will see this triangle kind of come out, that movement come out as one of the big angles of that light. So I want to make sure I get that in. In my head wrong. There we go. It changes the angle of that shadow in the eye socket. So as I'm drawing this in, I'm comparing it to the nostril and comparing it to the eyes to see where it stops. Comparing it to a lot of different things to make sure I have it at least reasonably correct before I just start throwing it in there. Because it's really easy to just kind of look at that shape and to just draw it without understanding its relationship to anything else. But where the accuracy comes from is in understanding the movement of that shape and the size of that shape in relation to these other shapes that you have on here. So that's why you know it takes me a minute to figure out exactly where that line is going to go, because as I'm looking, I'm making these decisions and these observations. So this is the light here. That is where most of that light is. Get my head back in the correct position. Okay. I keep wanting to move my head towards my drawing, which doesn't help because I keep screwing up the pose that way. So I do have this second light source that's from my studio light, which you can see is a much colder light than this other light that I've set up, which is not a light I typically have on in my studio. That is just for this pose, just for this piece, I suppose I should say. So these shapes here I will draw on, but I'm not going to like really rigidly paint around all of these once I start working, because I find that makes for just a really stiff painting, much stiffer than what I typically like to accomplish in my work. But I find that drawing this stuff in there, you know, kind of just reinforces my understanding of all of these shapes. So even though a lot of this stuff will disappear rather quickly, this just kind of building my understanding to make the painting process easier once I get to painting. And I'm so close to painting, I can taste it. I'm very excited to move on to the painting process. It should raise up a little bit. So there is this section up here is kind of confusing, and this is being influenced by a skylight that I have up here. So that's where this cold blue tone comes from in here, which is it's kind of a middle tone shape, I think. I think it's going to be a cold color even without that blue, that indirect light that's coming in right now. I believe that's still going to be pretty cold, even if I make this painting at night, which I am considering doing, which will, you know, change a little bit of these values. My hair is obviously further down my head today than it was yesterday. Yeah. Just to check. Yeah, my hair's like down to here today. Pretty big difference. Pretty big difference. Maybe I think this is probably closer to what my hair is going to typically do. Yesterday I had a little bit of product in it, which I don't usually rock the product. So this, my typical down and dirty look that I have rocking right now is probably more what my hairstyle is going to be in this painting, which will reduce my forehead, the amount of my forehead in here.